So we're heading up from Ontario, California to Las Vegas today to get a few things done up there and then fly back out to the Midwest. Just made a quick pit stop at Peggy Sue's 50s Diner, which is a place that everybody needs to visit at least once or twice in their lives. That's the Yermo rail yard and Marine Corps Logistics Depot. This is Peggy Sue's, a real institution. In the Barstow area, it's about halfway between LA and Las Vegas. That's Elephant Mountain, which we climbed, oh God, more than 25 years ago now. And then off in that direction, up off to the north, maybe 20 miles or so, is Fort Irwin and the National Training Center, where we've spent quite a bit of time back in the day. You can actually see Teefort Mountain from I-15. You can't right now, but when you're like coming up on Barstow from the south, you can see it there, off in the distance. It's really amazing how fast the landscape changes. When we left out from Ontario maybe an hour and a half ago, maybe 2 hours ago, thereabouts, it was mid-60s. And that's Southern California, like virtually sea level Southern California. And then you get on I-15 headed north, and very quickly you leave what I consider Southern California and head up about a 10 or 15 mile, really steep uphill stretch through the San Bernardino National Forest. And you come out at a place called Cajon Summit. You go up at least a couple thousand feet, and then you're in the high desert, and it's like Hesperia and Victorville and Apple Valley, Palmdale area. Just off to the north is Edwards Air Force Base. And in the space of about 15 minutes of going up that really steep uphill grade, maybe 20 minutes, the temp dropped this morning from like mid-60s down to like 51 degrees, and all of a sudden it got really foggy and misty. And that's the thing about the desert. Even when it's in the warmer months, and May is definitely one of the warmer months, it can still get really cold at night because there's no moisture to trap the heat and make that climate more moderate. You get these really rapid swings in temperature. And so it dropped, like I said, 15 degrees in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And it was like 51 degrees. And then in the space of the next hour or so, it went from 51 up to what you see there, 82 degrees. Because when the sun comes up, the temperature starts to skyrocket. And that's the downside of spending a lot of time in the desert, and why we would never live in a place like Las Vegas. Because for at least 4 or 5 months out of the year, maybe 5 or 6 months out of the year, 7 months out of the year, you can't even go outside hardly without winding up sweating buckets. It's 115 degrees in the middle of summer in Vegas. We passed through there last June or July, and it was, I mean, the pavement was starting to melt practically. Absolutely miserable place. And today it's going to be, it's low 80s now. It's going to be upper 80s or maybe low 90s with heavy winds. And that's the other problem in the desert. The wind starts to blow, and it'll just blow for days and days at a time. And it's not like a pleasant breeze either. It's like you're getting sandblasted in a furnace or something. Or when it's cold, it's that cold, dusty, sandy wind that just like sucks the life out of you. We spent a month at Fort Irwin once in January, quite a while ago, and we were out in the what's called the box doing an NTC rotation. And by the end of that month, you couldn't even feel your fingertips anymore. It took about another month after we got home back to Savannah, Georgia, Fort Stewart, where we were stationed at the time. It took maybe a good month until we got the feeling back in our fingertips. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world that could ever happen to you. It's just not the kind of thing you choose if you had the choice. Good training at the time, builds character, toughens you up. You need that when you're young, but at our age, not the kind of thing we choose. So anyway, today, briefly, I want to talk about a few things in terms of the interior of your F-150 if you're shopping for one, and a couple of the options in terms of seating and storage and that type of thing. So if you're buying an XLT, which is what we got, you have a number of choices for the interior. And so ignore all that trash. You can choose either a bench seat that goes straight across, obviously, and when it's set up as a bench, you can seat 3 people across in the front seat, and then obviously 3 more in the back seat, so you get a full 6-passenger capacity. And that's like the base option. You also obviously can get that in the XL, and then at least in the XLT and maybe also in the XL, you can choose this other option, which is a center console and then 2 bucket seats, or so-called bucket seats. And I think that's like a $300 upgrade, maybe between $200 and $300. I don't think it's a lot more than that. And that gives you seats that theoretically are more comfortable than that bench. And it gives you this center console. And if you pay another $150 or $200, you can get the lid of a center console that flips up and folds forward, like so, and it becomes this thing called the horizontal work surface. And so we did not get the work surface because we actually bought a truck off the lot. We searched the whole Midwest and found one truck that met our requirements, and it didn't have the folding work surface. And would it have been nice to have? Maybe. But in reality, now that we've talked to one of our colleagues who got the XL with the bench seat, if you really want a work surface because you're doing a lot of work in your vehicle like we are, with like a laptop computer, you should actually consider getting the bench seat, because the bench seat has that middle section, that middle seat. The seat back will fold forward and create a center console that's certainly not as roomy as this center console. That's permanent, but it's got some amount of storage in it, and more importantly, it's got its own horizontal work surface, its own flat work surface that rotates. It's like the lid of the console rotates towards you, almost like a table, like one of those tables in like a exit row seat or a first class seat on an airplane. And so it is actually a lot more useful. Again, if you plan on spending a lot of time using a laptop computer in your pickup, which I know a lot of people do, who actually use the truck as a work vehicle, because you're always at job sites, or you're always, I don't know, stopping and having to check email, stopping and having to do work of some kind or another. We actually have a printer in the back, and we print documents and shipping labels and things like that. And we spend a lot of time working on our laptop. And so here's the problem with the more expensive option, which is the center console, like you see here, with the lid that folds forward to create a flat work surface. if you've got the manual, or if you've got the console shifter, it actually folds down out of the way to make room for the lid of the console that flips forward. And here's the problem with it. And we're not going to demonstrate it now because we're driving, but if you've got your laptop computer, this is about where we put it when we're getting work done. We put it on the lid of the console. And then you open it up and you're kind of working away and that type of thing. And it kind of sort of works to set it up on the lid of the console, like you see there. But what, you know, and it's not quite that well balanced. It's not all that secure, but at least it works more or less. What doesn't really work, I don't think, is when you fold the lid of the console forward and then you put the laptop down there, because then you're kind of bent over and you're having to reach down and below even the level of where your lap is and work on a computer all the way down there. And that can't be comfortable for any sustained amount of time. Again, we will set up and work for an hour or longer, depending on what's going on. You know, we're waiting to meet somebody, we're waiting to pick something up or drop something off, so on and so forth. You know, we always have the need to stop and get work done. And the idea of having to kind of bend all the way forward and be reaching down to the level of the shifter and your cup holders all the way down that far to get work done, it doesn't seem like a very comfortable option at all. And so now that we know about the bench seat, where the center backrest will fold down similar to, you know, to about the same height as you see here, and then it has that lid of the bench of the console that will pivot towards you and create a work surface that's like right about there, at about the level of the bottom half of the steering wheel. That seems like a hell of a lot more useful option and ergonomic, so you can actually reach it while you're still seated comfortably in the seat, and you're typing at about that height right there. If you see that, that seems 1,000 times more comfortable than having to reach all the way down to that level. You can ignore all that trash. And so if we had our choice, if we could go back and order this vehicle, which is not a choice that anybody has at this point in the summer of 2021 because of the production being completely brought to a halt because of the computer chip shortage. But say if you didn't really need your truck desperately and urgently, and you wanted to put in an order and you could afford to wait 3 to 5 to 6 months, or however long it took for them to actually build your truck and deliver it, I would say you should seriously think about getting the bench seats with that center console and the lid to the console that folds outward or pivots outward towards you and becomes a work surface. Now, this is obviously available in the XL because we've got a colleague who's got one with that exact setup. And it's also available in the XLT. And whether you can get it in something like the Lariat or any of the upper trim models, that's an unknown. But then again, we would never get one of the upper trim models, so that's not really a concern to us. In our minds, the only attraction of one of the upper trim models is if you want the seats that can fold all the way down, what's called the max recline seats, because you plan to take so many trips that are extended duration and overnight, and you plan on camping in your pickup truck and actually sleeping in the cab. To us, that's not really super appealing. And we're not really into that kind of thing. And so we wouldn't upgrade. I think you can't even get those max recline seats in the Lariat. I think you have to go platinum and above. And so the idea of getting like a $75,000 truck just to get the max recline seats, that's $15,000 more than we pay for this thing. And you know how long it's going to take you to recoup that $15,000 by sleeping in the front of your pickup truck, in the cab of your pickup truck, and skipping out on hotels and skipping out on showers and that type of thing? You're never gonna make up that extra cost that you pay for the max recline seats. If we could get them in a lower trim model, yeah, we you know, and maybe you just want to pull over at a rest stop and take a nap every now and then if you're doing a really long drive and there's no hotels to stop at. Maybe if you're driving through the middle of the desert as we are, but still, that's not the kind of thing you really want to do if you had the choice. So no, we'd never in a million years pay the extra money for something like a platinum just to get the max recline seats so you could pull over and take a nap as needed. And don't get me wrong, you know, when you get to middle age, yeah, you need your nap time. But not for an extra $15,000. Hell no. Absolutely not. Anyway, again, something to think about in terms of seating. If you have the choice, which you definitely do in the XLT, and you might also have that choice in the XL, whether to get the bench seat with the center console that folds down, that starts out as the backrest of your center seat and becomes a center console that has that lid that pivots over towards the driver and becomes a work surface at right about this level in this location. That, to me, is actually an attractive option. Very, very attractive option. Plus, you're saving all that money that you would otherwise spend on the center console option, which we have here, plus the folding work surface. So you're saving around $400, maybe $500, and getting a much more comfortable and more useful place to set up your laptop and get work done. You do lose some space in the console itself because that backrest for the center seat, it doesn't have a ton of room in it. But to be honest, this very, very large console that we got here, we don't really use it that much. Haven't used it that much so far. I think it's lockable, so that's kind of nice. And so is the lower glove compartment, not the upper one. And so the idea of being able to lock up various items in your center console is kind of neat, but it's not essential because of the fact that you can use the glove compartment and the locking compartmented or partition storage under the back seat, which we've talked about before, which is a very, very useful and very impressive and innovative option. All right, anyway, hope everyone's having a good day. We're just over 8,000 miles on this thing in about 2 months of ownership, of which we've really only driven about 6 weeks. You see the mileage we're getting, and we've talked about it before, low 20s, going highway speeds between, let's say, 75 and 80, up and down the mountains in the Mojave Desert, headed out towards Las Vegas. That mileage, the MPGs, they just keep ticking upward. And if you drive it, again, between 75, let's just say 65 and 80, in this power boost, you're going to see mileage that starts to become impressive. It was not that way when we first got the truck. It was in the mid to upper teens. And now, yeah, it's the low 20s pretty consistently. Unless you're driving between 80 and 90 and passing on the right and that kind of thing. And then, yeah, your mileage drops down to the teens. And that's not to say we drive that way. But that's just what's going to happen. Again, a very, very scenic drive on I-15. You see a lot of different terrain, a lot of different environments or climates when you're headed up from Las Vegas, or I should say San Diego to Las Vegas. And then when you go further north of Las Vegas on 15, you pass through probably one of the prettiest section of the entire country, which is called the Virgin River Gorge. It's like this ancient canyon, and it goes, and it's like a creek bed, and it goes up on either side of the highway about 1,000 or 2,000 feet straight up. And then you go through St. George, Utah. You go past Zion and Moab and all that. And eventually you get to Salt Lake City. Very, very, very pretty drive. Actually, I'm not sure if you get to like Zion and Moab on I-15, or if you have to go east on I-70 towards Denver. But either way, very, very pretty drive. So I hope you're all having a great day, and we will talk to you later.